All right, thanks, everyone. This is Scott Rogers. I call to order the Appropriations Committee meeting of Tuesday, February 4th to order. This open meeting of the Northborough Appropriations Committee is being conducted in person and remotely, consistent with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023 relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. All members of the Northborough Appropriations Committee are allowed to participate either in person or remotely. The Act allows Northborough Appropriations Committee to meet in person and remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream or the recording of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting may feature public comment. Let me confirm members are present either in person or remotely. When I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. George Brinkle.
Here.
And Bob D'Amico.
Here.
And Terry Halloran.
Here.
And Jeff Knight.
Here.
And Tim Kalin is traveling. And staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Stephanie Bacon.
Here.
And Jason Little.
Here.
And soon, Isabella Caruso.
Here.
Thank you. Great. First order of business, if we have anybody from the public, we take public comment. I do not see any hands raised in the meeting nor in the room, so we'll go on to the next bit on the agenda. For our last meeting, we deferred the election of officers so that there's an opportunity for the full committee to meet. Although Tim is not here tonight, he did send me a note that he said, please proceed with the election of officers if we want to. He was fine with whatever the committee came to. So we have, as you'll remember, three positions. We have the chair, the vice chair, and the clerk. Our currently with myself as chair, George as vice chair, and Tim as clerk. I know I am willing to continue to serve in that capacity if nominated, but if there's anybody else that wanted to be nominated and take that job as well. So to get things started, I'll open it up. Is there a nomination for Appropriations Committee Chair?
I nominate Scott Rogers.
Second.
Nominated by Terry, seconded by Bob. Are there any other nominations?
I should nominate
chair.
Tim as a joke.
His note did not say whether he was declining of any other further.
Oh, he's not here.
Yeah. Any other nominations? Great. We'll take a vote on that. All those in favor of Scott Rogers as chair, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. That is a 5-0. Are there nominations for vice chair?
I nominate George Brinkle as vice chair.
Second.
Bob, second. Thank you very much. Nominated by Terry. Any other nominations for vice chair? Hearing none, let's take a vote on that. George Brinkle as vice chair, please indicate by saying aye. All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. And I assume no one opposed. Yeah, I heard George say his own bit. And clerk, are there any nominations for clerk?
Nominate Jeff. Would you like to do it?
Sure.
And given that this meeting, we have staff, support in terms of creation of meeting minutes, it would really come down to if there was anything that needed to be signed or represented by the committee, then the clerk often signs those types of paperwork. All right, and so I missed the nomination for Jeff. That was a Bob.
Jeff, yeah.
And did we get a second on that?
Second.
Thank you, Terry. Any other nominations? It's good stuff. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Looks good, 5-0. All right, thank you very much, everybody. Next would be the approval of the meeting minutes. They looked great. Jason, thank you very much for that and your part of your duties to provide the minutes. After the package was submitted, Terry noticed that there was a portion of our discussions where we talked about the budgets and needing to continue to look at the growth in budgets over time and its consumption of our levy capacity. Earlier this afternoon, he drafted a paragraph to be added to the minutes. So what I'd like to do is table the, and it's long enough that I think to read it, it would be clunky to do it as an amendment. So if you don't mind, we'll table the minutes, we'll get that update from Terry incorporated and get that reissued, and we'll look to do the minutes at our next meeting, if that's okay with everybody.
Agreed.
If you're interested, I'll read it right now to give you an idea of what you see in the, in the change. So let me bring that up.
You want bigger print?
He's got big print right there. I've got it right here. All right. And so it's, goes like, Mr. Rogers initiated discussion concerning the budget process that Mr. Little had outlined in his recent communications with the Select Board and the committee. There was general discussion about the need for department heads to continue to review service levels in general and ensure that simply because certain services had historically been provided was not necessarily a reason to continue. During the discussion, the committee noted that spending levels and the current run rates of expenses may lead to taxation levels that approach or exceed the levy limit under Proposition 2.5 in upcoming fiscal years. So it'll be something along the lines, and we may adjust, but we'll see it in
Through the
print.
chair, which agenda item, would I put that under the meeting schedule, meeting date?
It was.
So this would be
I would put it right
under-
in that review meeting schedule, and the
Number-
next
number
meeting
5.
date was right near the bottom.
Okay.
That's where it would go. So-
Oh, in terms of, yeah, the insertion. Yeah, when I'll take a look at that print, and I think that's, yeah, that makes sense where that goes.
Just through the chair, we're using software that creates a transcript of the meeting.
Right.
And it's pretty powerful software where you upload the YouTube video that's going to be broadcast tonight, and this will have, I'll be generating the next set of minutes. But I go through that, and I tried to summarize it a lot because I know the purpose of the minutes isn't to create a transcript, it's to record what happened at the meeting.
Correct.
And the heart of it, and I tried to boil all of this down to the heart of it. So have no problem adding a paragraph, and I remember the conversation
Yeah.
at the meeting, so I have no problem adding it or taking it, but like I put effort into trying to make these as short as possible, and if anything gets missed, or it could be added back.
Totally understand. I know as all my years as being corporate secretary for a bunch of corporations, the comment was, from the lawyers, always keep stuff really simple, and, questions were asked and full discussion ensued was the type of language that we used to use. I just thought that this particular instance relative that our discussion was about Prop 2.5, about run rates, about spending levels, that it created it's a level of importance that, in my opinion, was necessary to make sure that we're informing the public of those types of discussions we're having.
No,
But
I agree with you, I
but I get it.
appreciate the input, so we'll add that, and if,
Yeah, so we'll add it to section 4 there on the town finance update.
I think it's going under 5 for the meeting schedule, but that's okay.
That's where the discussion.
That's where it happened
That's where it happened.
chronologically, didn't it?
Chronologically, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
So through the chair, if people are comfortable voting on the minutes, given the amendment, I'm happy to update them, and then we'll post them with the clerk.
so was my reading it, was that sufficient that you got the gist? That we don't need to table it?
That's
We can
fine with
take a
me, yeah.
vote? Okay, great. So is there a motion on approving the meeting minutes January 23rd as amended?
Approve as amended.
All right, there's George. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Terry. All those in favor?
I'll abstain since I wasn't at that meeting.
All good.
Good choice.
I guess I should abstain too.
No problem. And just to let everybody know too, if on a meeting that you're not here, if you're able to view the recording, read the minutes, nothing precludes you from
I
then
know that.
voting on it.
I didn't, so.
Good stuff.
Thanks
All
for calling
right.
us out, Scott. Thanks.
That's good. Okay, we are ready for the main event. We've got our Director of Health and Human Services here to talk to about that department budget. Isabella, I'll turn things over to you.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here. I am just going to share my screen. Hopefully that works. All right, is everyone seeing that?
Yes, coming through.
Okay, perfect. So I am going to take just a few minutes to kind of just talk a little bit about our department and how we're set up. Obviously, at town meeting in April, we did a reorganization, so here we are. as the Health and Human Services Department. So we have the Board of Health and the Youth Commission. We actually just restarted the Youth Commission. So we had our first meeting in January, and we will continue monthly, looking to increase membership with some adults, but also some youth participation. So on the far left, we have our Public Health Excellence Shared Service Grant staff. So first we have our full-time regional health inspector, so that's Michael Seeger. He does all of our food inspections as well as some public health complaints. Again, this Public Health Excellence Grant is for Northborough, Southborough, Westborough, and Boylston. So all of those services are in all 4 towns. Then we have our regional public health nurse contract through the Salmon VNA, and they do all of our community-wide blood pressure screenings, Narcan and CPR trainings, vaccine clinics, and then infectious disease investigation. Next, one of our new team members, Michaela, she started in November. She is our regional epidemiologist and shared service coordinator, so both of those roles are full-time, or make up a full-time staff. So on the shared service coordinator side, she coordinates the regional grant and all of the services that we provide. That is a requirement of the PHE grant. And then for her other half-time, she is the epi, and she reviews and translates data, as well as creating health communication and helping out our nurses with the disease investigation through the Maven, Massachusetts software. Next, we move into town-funded staff. So another new position. So this is a shared position with Southborough. So Southborough hired Chris, our full-time health agent, but we get him for half-time. He does all of the septic and well inspection, as well as helping Michael with the public health complaints that come through. Next, I'm really excited to officially announce this, that we have hired a full-time social worker. So Caitlin started just last week. So she's onboarding and really excited to be here. So once she's fully onboarded, she will be doing short-term one-on-one counseling, as well as therapeutic groups, support groups, as well as mental health prevention programming. So really trying to get her into the community. We've already met with the schools, as well as offering office hours at the library. And then we have another new position, the community outreach coordinator. So Liz started in October. And if you've been on social media or our website, you know Liz has been very busy. So she is doing all of the work to connect our residents with the department, as well as connect them with local, state, and federal resources and referrals, as well as to help them fill out applications like fuel assistance. And then we have our administrative assistants. So we have one full-time we share with building. So Jess and Annie really help us with the day-to-day fielding all of the residents' calls and inquiries, and really just keep the department together. And then last but certainly not least, we have our full-time substance use prevention coordinator, Emily, and she is paid directly through the CDC Drug-Free Communities grant. So she does all of the youth prevention substance work, and that is a grant between Northborough and Southborough. So really working inside the schools with police, with all sectors of the community, which is really coalition work. So this looks a lot similar to what we presented at town meeting, but really just wanted to break up the different staff positions, what they do, as well as their funding source. So moving right along to grants. So our department is funded by 2 big grants. So the first one that we've talked about for years is the Public Health Excellence Grant. So that is from the Massachusetts Office of Local and Regional Public Health, and it's been here since 2021. So the goal is to improve regional public health services across the entire state. So this grant, Northborough is the fiscal host, but it serves Boylston, Northborough, Southborough, and Westborough. So currently we have a 3-year contract, FY25 to FY27, with that $460,000 yearly. So this is a great addition. Right now, beforehand, it was only 1-year contract, so every year we were redoing the paperwork for the yearly contract. So now they've moved to a 3-year contract, hoping it continues. So basically, I just wanted to take a step back and talk a little bit more about the grant. So right now, the Office of Local and Regional Public Health, this Public Health Excellence Grant, supports 91% of all Massachusetts cities and towns. So this is a really large grant program, and it currently funds 174.5 FTE of local public health staff. So again, really a commitment to local public health. SAFE 2.0, which you've also might have heard in the legislature, did pass in November of 2024, so that's really exciting for local public health, hopefully strengthening the infrastructure for the next contract cycle. We also have contact tracing grant funds, so that was really in the midst of COVID, so we do have some rollover funds, and that will end in June of 2026. We do not have any staff on that grant due because it's a shorter term grant and a little bit more specific. Our second large grant is the CDC Drug-Free Communities Grant. So we were awarded that in FY24. It's a 5-year grant at $125,000 a year, and that supports Northborough and Southborough through our Encompass Coalition. So again, Northborough is the fiscal host, and we support Northborough and Southborough with this grant. So after year 5, there is an option to reapply. It's a competitive grant, but you can apply for years 6 through 10, which is a piece of our sustainability for this grant, as well as possibly using opioid funds. That would be a perfect position for the opioid funds.
Isabella,
And then just taking, sorry.
question on the Public Health Excellence Grant. Is that also anticipated to be renewed and be available for another 3-year cycle?
We sure hope so. We haven't received any word, but they're definitely working hard at the state and definitely tapping into that SAFE 2.0 approval. So we haven't heard anything yet. And of course, the last 2 weeks with grants and public health have been uncertain, but that is their hope because it's such a wide stream grant for the entire state of Massachusetts.
This is a state grant, not a federal grant? Who's funding this?
Their funds were through ARPA, I believe. They may receive some federal funds, but I don't know the exact percentage of the funding source through the state. But we get the funds through the state, if that makes sense.
Isabel, could I just clarify one thing for
Yeah,
the board?
yeah.
This isn't one where we've reported it as a federal grant. I don't believe it's a truly federal grant. I think the money is classified as a state grant
Yeah.
because we don't have to,
All right, so the
people
decision.
won't understand this distinction, but we have to report all of our federal grants in what's called our federal single audit report because we receive above the threshold. That's where we're required to file a special report to the federal government for how we've spent their money. Most of the federal grants that the town receives are through state agencies, so just getting money from the state isn't evidence enough that it's just a state grant. It could be a federal grant that's flowing through a state agency. This one is one that we haven't reported. I believe it's classified as a state grant. If they're backstopping it with federal money, we're not reporting it as our expenditure to the federal government. So that's just the distinction.
I was just asking from the standpoint of
What the
who
funding
needs
source
to
would be.
Otprove
Right.
continuing this for the next period? So it would
Right,
be
and
the
I
state?
believe it would be the state, yeah.
All right.
That decision is being made by the state, whereas the other CDC's DFC, Drug-Free Communities Grant, that one is a federal grant where we do report that to the federal government
Okay.
as our federal grant expenditures.
And Isabella, on the drug-free communities, that sounded like that was a little more solid in those years 6 to 10 in terms of being our ability to reapply?
Correct, yes.
Excellent. All right, thank you for the,
No problem, thanks.
Any other questions for right now?
not right now, please proceed.
Perfect.
I know it's hard that you can't see the room here.
A slide just to kind of brag about our department. So right now, Emily and I are actually outside of DC at it's called CADPA. It's a substance use prevention conference. So we actually were awarded this year a Blue Ribbon Coalition. So throughout the entire country, they picked 11 coalitions that were really doing community level work to produce real outcomes. So we were awarded that today, which is really exciting. Just shows our dedication to the work as well as becoming a competitive coalition for the second 5-year grant. And then secondly, our Greater Boroughs Partnership for Health, for that PHE grant, We received an award from Massachusetts Municipal Association, the Pickard Innovation Award, for all of our work to advance public health standards. So all of our nursing services, our health inspections and environmental health, they've really saw that as a commitment to health equity and community services. So we're really excited to also have just been awarded that just a couple weeks ago, actually. So again, we're really doing a lot of work. We have onboarded a new staff every month since October, so we have been really busy, but really happy that we're fully staffed doing the work and looking forward to new programming and initiatives. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. I guess to talk a little bit about the budget. So the health budget, so it's still broken up into those two department budgets as I am overseeing both. So the big change with the health budget is an increase in the health agent wage to cover that part-time Chris's salary. We really needed to improve and increase capacity in our environmental health work. And then in the FYS budget, the biggest change or increase is about $1,800 in the interface referral service line, which we've had since I believe 2021, or right after COVID. And that basically offers all of Northborough residents and staff to have access to the interface referral line to connect those with a mental health professional within 2 weeks. So that's a service that we still use. And the schools have also been a great, advocator of referring students to that line. So Jason, I don't know if you want to talk more details about the change in budget and then the opioid funds.
Yeah, help me orient to which line did the change for the interface?
Oh, Scott, if you flip to the last page of the budget document that has
Oh,
the
I see,
heading for
contractual
health and human-
services.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Contractual services, correct.
16,250 to the 18,000. Okay, got it. I was just having trouble orienting myself that way. Excellent. Hey, just to go back a little bit in terms of the department merge and the structure. So I think it's very exciting that what had been our inability to hire a social worker because we were advertising only half-time under youth services. So the benefit of the merged department was finally to be able to fill that position, to be able to offer a competitive, a worthwhile full-time position, and begin to offer services again that had been missing. Sure, a lot of referrals through interface and all that, but really to see both from a staff perspective, be able to get that back in action, and then I almost called it a reboot of the youth commission, and that commission to be able to be back and active again in combination with the other things that are going on. So I think the town's decision to create that merged department is really working out. Just wanted to give that little advertisement there. All right, more on the budget.
Oh, yeah, so if you turn back of that same document, I'm flipping to it myself. There's the part that says significant budget changes,
Yes.
and
Page, we don't have page numbers yet,
oh, yeah,
528.
the one that says 5-28.
Yeah.
Those are subject to change too, once we put everything together, but, the overall, the budget is going up 4.92%. However, if you take into account that we're proposing transferring money out of the opioid settlement fund of $10,000, once that $10,000 is netted off, it's a net increase of 2.43%.
And where would that increase be, or that transfer be applied?
Well, typically, the mechanics of that would be that under Article 4, where the town's budget is voted, there would just be an additional line within that list of transfers that we vote out to
Okay.
just underwrite the general fund budget.
And would it, in terms of then, is there a specific target in the Health and Human Services budget that would get, or it'd be more
Well,
of just a general?
the budget would be whole, and we just would have a funding source of $10,000 being transferred in.
Yeah, what I didn't know is out of the opioid settlement money, if there
Oh, it
were
would-
certain restrictions on what it could be used
Well,
for.
it would be navigated, we have to do reporting for as part of the settlement agreement, and it would be targeting the outreach coordinator.
Outreach coordinator, okay, great, excellent.
So it'd be targeting, sorry, the social worker.
Oh, that's the purple on
Correct,
the
yeah.
chart. Now I see the color
Yes,
code.
and then according to the opioid settlement kind of criteria, it meets two, so connections to care as well as supporting greater access to mental health services, specifically in young people. So with that, 10,000, the social worker would definitely be meeting the criteria for the opioid settlement funds.
And then my follow-up question to that, would it be advantageous to transfer even more to cover that role and those programs?
Yeah, I mean, that would be up to, we could potentially increase the amount, I believe, but that would be, I'd have to work with Isabella on that to
And
determine
it depends how many hours social workers working with opioid.
Yeah, so I think that's, and I bring it up because it's kind of another example, right, of that continuing conversation we had the last meeting. Is there, if there's opportunities to use funding sources appropriately, right, under those restrictions, and, I mean, going $10,000, $20,000, $10,000 here and there isn't going to offer much relief against the levy, but I feel there's kind of consensus amongst a lot of the financially focused boards, committees, and commissions that any sort of relief just kind of helps us. So that's kind of what I asked. So I'd say if there's an opportunity and it makes sense to use even more of that opioid abatement settlement money, opioid abatement
Yeah.
settlement, I said that phrase right. Let's take advantage of that
Right, and
within
I
the
think
bounds.
you can't see us, right?
Yeah. Dave, is there a way to include the room camera in Zoom so Isabella can see us?
Oh, great, thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It was odd, because when I was on the phone the other day, but,
The touch isn't working, so you gotta use the mouse.
oh,
Right in
okay,
front of the computer.
Sorry, Isabella, I meant to do that much sooner.
that's probably why. And then you might have to.
I can see now.
Can you- Oh, okay, perfect, super. Yeah, so it just depends how often the social worker is actually working with opioid
Oh,
issues.
right, so it
because it has
could
to-
ebb and flow
yeah,
based on actual
exactly.
cases.
So I'm sure Isabella will figure that out as how much she can pull from that account.
Okay.
Because there is a considerable amount.
We are going to be getting installments annually as part of that settlement agreement. And I think they're projected to total about $923,000 through 2038. So we're going to be getting small pieces every year. We got some money up front. So I think it's kind of front-loaded where we have about $230,000 in the fund right now. So this would be the first use of the fund that's been proposed. But
Okay.
when we talked about it internally, we felt kind of the cleanest way of approaching it would be to have it be part of the town's budget. So we're reflecting the entire amount of the position in the budget, and then we'd just be using that as a funding source toward the general fund's budget. But to that end, whether 10,000 could be increased or not, that's something that we can talk about going along, and work out that detail. But we wanted to make a start with applying this fund toward some of the uses that were
Yeah, get started
authorized.
on some of those programs and some of those actual
Absolutely.
services that would come under it. That's awesome. That's great. Thank you.
Do we have some metrics we're tracking to measure the impact of what we're doing?
Isabella,
Good question.
For the opioid funds or just in general?
Just in general, in terms of, well, we mentioned we have a full-time social worker now, and, for this, are we tracking? So, obviously, we're doing this for a reason, and are we meeting the goal of that reason, et cetera? I was just wondering if, I imagine you mentioned we got the blue ribbon thing. I imagine there's some metrics associated with that.
Yes, we do. So that's the coalition, so definitely have specific goals and activities and outcomes. For the social work and the case management, we do track all of our data right now on Excel, obviously HIPAA secure, but I'm working with David currently to get a HIPAA case management software to make sure that we can actively and accurately track different cases, a number of people, but also the referrals we're referring them to, as well as the amount of times we talk to them, all of those different activities. So doing it kind of not very cleanly in Excel, but a good Excel table works, but working with David currently to get more sophisticated software.
Because it would help to know the impact of, the benefit that we're getting out of doing this.
And how many people we're helping, yes.
How many people, and kind of how that, is improving the quality of life in
Absolutely.
Northborough, Southborough.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Any other questions on Health and Human Services?
One just general question. Are the numbers we see here, is this net of all the grants, or is it gross of the grants?
That is net of the.
This is all that,
grants,
so this is the
yes,
net impact?
To
Okay.
the general fund.
To the
yes.
general fund, okay.
Okay.
And so the grants they just,
Well, they.
how does the accounting mechanism work?
Well, I can talk to you about
We can talk
all
about
the
that
details of it, but
But,
as an accountant, I can explain that we have three bases of accounting that we follow. They'll show up on our full accruals, our full accrual governmental statements.
Right.
There'll be expenditures within there.
okay,
On our day-to-day basis, they're expended, we use fund accounting, so they're expended out of the special revenue funds that they're in, which special revenue
okay,
funds.
so you
is
take
just-
money and you post it to the special revenue funds, and then you offset it against,
Correct, yeah, and those expenses are paid from outside of the general fund,
understand, but this is the net result.
yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Oh, no problem.
Other questions? Good. All right, Isabella, thank you so much. Appreciate you taking time to join us remotely while you were
Of course.
down there receiving
I
awards.
wasn't there in person, but I'm happy to always be here. So if you have any questions afterwards, feel free to shoot me an email. Happy to help.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Isabella.
Isabella.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Congrats.
See you later.
Right, next on the agenda, an update on town finance. Jason, I think you've got an updated memo.
Oh, yeah, so I don't have a lot to share beyond, I just wanted to put this in the packet. This is what was presented to the select board at their last meeting. It was just to give a snapshot of where we were with the total budget. Again, there's a lot of details to work out before we're comfortable releasing a lot of details about what's included in the numbers, but these are sum total where we were. The level service number in this memo is evolving, so that number is going to change moment by moment as we go through these budgets and so forth. The point that I wanted to make with this memo was that we calculated what the upper limit of departments, how much they could go up in total through this exercise, using all of our levy capacity. And then we presented a number at the summit over the summer to kind of telegraph where budgets are going if we use some very, very conservative and kind of austere budget increases for the next 5 years or so. So somewhere we're going to be between the summit model, which was not necessarily realistic to think that the school budgets would come in at 3% and health insurance would come in at 4%, because we're hearing a lot higher number now. It's going to be somewhere between that and the summit, the upper limit. It's going to be somewhere between those two numbers, and those are the boundaries that we have to work within, and that's why it's evolving so much. The other thing that I wanted to present was I wanted to update these two affordability measures that we do on the basis of evaluating where we fall versus the other cities and towns in the Commonwealth. There's 351 cities and towns. Northborough's tax bill is FY25 is the 70th highest tax bill in the state. Relative to other cities and towns, that's been somewhere between, in the last 10 years, has been somewhere between 55, 60, and last year in 24, it was 74, now we're 70th, so we're definitely, the town has definitely their tax bill relative to everybody else, they're seeing their average tax bill relative to everybody else has gone down relative to everyone else. While it's increased, it hasn't increased to the same extent that others have. And then, you know, that's literally just looking at it in terms of statewide ranking. The other thing we look at is those rankings relative to our neighbors. So we're typically in the same region as these other towns that are listed in the memo. So the point was to look at what are the income tax returns that the state has data for per capita relative to the average tax bill, to kind of get a measure of affordability, how much effort is being put to pay the bills. Anybody writing a check out probably feels a lot of effort, but it's using a metric of data that's evolved from the state. So when we did this calculation using the data from last year, it was the Northborough's tax bill relative to its per capita income returns was 14%. So by this measure, the tax bill is becoming more affordable. So people may be incredulous to hear that at home, but it's simply the metrics that are that are available to us to measure these affordability. And that was the purpose and update that I have on the town finances at this point.
Jason?
Yeah.
So the concern I raised last summer at the summit, and then I raised it again at the firehouse, our meeting right before that meeting, the special town meeting, is that if I feel like our goal is untenable and unaffordable, and we're looking at, like, it seems like if we come in at a 10% tax levy hike, then that's kind of what we're aiming for. And we're just starting down this long, dark tunnel of debt service for this shiny new firehouse. So I think this affordability metric is going to look very different this time next year, and it's going to continue to look different each year as this. So I just think that the departments need to be aiming for something closer to a level service in light of all the debt service we're taking on. We're still a landlord where we shouldn't be. We're still holding on to property that we shouldn't be holding on to. And I just think that using 10% tax levy increase as a goal is a mistake. And I think that the department should really be looking at that as they go through their budgets.
Right, so to that end, the 10% wasn't a goal, it's just a reflection of the obligations that the town has that have been voted, the primarily being the debt service for the fire station that was approved. Within the level service budget requests, that says 7.47%, but that's simply reflecting some of the fixed costs that are coming in higher than we anticipated. The departmental budget requests that we've gone through to date have been much less than that number, but they're combined with the fixed costs in this table here. So again, as we set aside to do this, it's 10% isn't a goal, it's just to reflect the requests as we come through them and knowing what the context is.
Somehow I'm not feeling any better.
Yeah, and I think we talked a little bit last meeting too, kind of the difference in some of the scope and setting our schedule of which departments we needed to have presentations from. In that, you know, you saw Health and Human Services, a little bit of opioid money, kept them under a 3% increase, right? Library coming in under at 3%. That's, I think, much longer discussions and more focus on those larger departments that aren't coming in at the 3%. And that's kind of, you're kind of hearing that
Yeah.
we're still in the mode of 3% year on year, right? And that sort of expected increase year on year, you know, operated so well for us for so long. But it also generated a lot of pent up need. And we alleviated some of that in last year's budget, right? Getting some staffing changes, the merger of the department with real no increase in budget on the Health and Human Services and some other staff demands. But we have baked in, you know, the increase in the firefighters 3 years out, right? And a plan to get there. I think we're going to hear public safety, police department needs in terms of officers. I expect that, so, and we heard at the summit, right, some programs and services that would be increased as well. So you're kind of hearing from members in this committee that, you know, we're going to try to track to that 3% kind of mode as much as possible, because that's historically, kind of emotionally, what's worked for Northborough, and there's that kind of, not inertia, what would be the right term? But anyway, that's been kind of a financial policy and a perspective that's been in place for a long time. Now, understood though, real needs that we have to take, but it's more of that being kind of our default going in as we look at these. Am I saying that? Did I do that well enough, George? That's kind of represent history.
I would not like to explain to my neighbors how their taxes are going up 10% next year. It just seems that big a jump is unreasonable, or.
And we have a hard enough time, you know, just recently tax bills came up and it had nothing to do with fire station, right? It's just the normal
Right.
recalculation that happens, right?
Right.
And actually, you know, you go back to what was proposed in the budget, a certain single-family increase, and actually that recalculation was less, you know, less of a tax rate, less of an impact, but it's still an increase to the bill.
Yep.
So
Right.
that, it's that intellectual knowledge that the increases are getting a smaller percentage increase, and yet it's an increase, and that's the emotional impact when you see that bill increase each time. And that's what I hope we can help explain, monitor, present, reflect, both in our meetings and here, as well as, you know, our votes for town meeting and our recommendations in town meeting. But it's a hard situation for folks to understand, right? Without having all the detailed information that we have, to say, wait, no, my taxes went up a bunch. And then we step back and says, yeah, but it wasn't as much as we thought it was gonna be. Yeah.
That doesn't, we're not saying that.
You know, and every time we talk about the tax rate and the change in the valuations, I find that to be a red herring whenever we
Yeah.
discuss it. The only number that's really important in terms of what we are looking at is what's the total tax levy.
Right.
That's the number. And going forward, you've got new growth plus 2.5%, because clearly you're gonna be at the cap.
Yep.
So 3% is the reality if you don't want
Yeah.
a Prop 2.5 override, and then you have all your different strategies that you can possibly use. But it's gonna be an eye-opener for taxpayers to, A, learn that we are at the cap, and B, what the implications of that are. And if we continue at the current run rates, we're gonna blow through that thing like you can't believe.
It's gonna come a lot
And
sooner.
it's just, and there's a reason 2.5 was passed back in the early 80s, and it's a reason it's still there. And that reason will come more to the forefront as we present numbers like this to our fellow citizens.
I'm glad you mentioned new growth, because that's something, and I think some of the early messaging and some upcoming meetings that might be planned around economic development. So I'm hoping that both from some of the economic development ideas that have come from maybe master planning and that sort of thing, as well as maybe some adjustments to zoning and land use boards that help stimulate development rather than stifle development. That might help in our new growth numbers as well.
Do we have a new growth number yet from the assessors, the estimate that you're gonna use for,
I think we've been estimating somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million of value.
okay?
But that $30 million of value is in comparison to $4.5 billion of total value.
Yes, I know, so it.
So we try to look at, I mean, again, there's getting to the new growth number, which is a function of Proposition 2.5, which that includes personal property
Right.
growth, which is depreciates quickly.
Yep.
What we want to track is the growing total tax base, and that's what the real value in growth in the town. The town has this capacity because of development, and that development started, it was about when I came here back in 2008, The Northborough Crossing was being constructed, and Avalon Bay Apartments came in, and we've got a good slide in in some of our presentations, but of the new growth that has amassed over the years. And $30 million is actually a low number, and we've used that conservatively, and we used that number for, to craft the FY25 budget, and going out into the future. And it's hard to explain to people, that's because there's not developable parcels in
Right.
town anymore.
Right.
And, you know, the big push with Northborough Crossing came, that was, the town benefited from that as a result of that coming in as real value that came, real taxable value that came to the town during that 2007, 2008 recessionary period where everybody thought it was going to be delayed, and it continued, and it came to town. So we generated a lot of levy capacity as a result of that growth. The second event was the Avalon Bay Apartments that came, you know, $200 million of value dropped in. And then the other one was the warehouses that were developed. I mean, if you like them or don't like them, they did have taxable value that added to the
I like
capacity of the town.
That's taxable value.
Right.
But now we're approaching what's called build-out,
Right.
and we don't have a lot of available commercial space to develop. So again, we're going to have to manage those increases much more carefully going forward in terms of the growth of town government.
Absolutely, Jason. I totally understand and totally agree. And that was wonderful when we had a whole bunch of capacity under the levy limit. But when you don't, you don't. And you've either got to figure out how to create some, or you have to manage your expenses, or you have to go hat in hand to the taxpayers and say, we need to do this from an override perspective. And that's never a good place to be, in my opinion.
We're going to need to be real clear this year what is driving the 10% increase kind of thing. Now, we've got obviously the debt service of the firehouse, but what other things are driving the budget up, and are we prioritizing our needs correctly? You know, we're adding to fire, you know, there may be some things that come up, you know, in public safety areas, et cetera. What are we doing, and how are we prioritizing those? And are there some that it's like, it would be great if we could do it, but maybe we ought to wait a year because we're doing so much in a single year? And we can't keep doing this year after year.
Right, and I mean, that's a good point. I mean, within the town's departmental budget, that doesn't make up the totality of the increase. I mean, the other things that are going up are our retirement assessment, that's likely to go up about 10% every year. It's going up less than that for us relative to the rest of the system, just based on actuarial numbers. The schools, I mean, again, we did this projection based on 3% increases. Schools are coming in more around 5% in total. So, you know, those numbers are where it's going. And then the other biggest increase on a one item or unique item kind of thing is definitely the fire department, the fire station's debt.
Right.
Jason, on this one item from the memo, the special articles
Yep.
totaling like 3.6, what's an example of the
That's
things that are
simply the
categorized there?
capital articles. So
Oh, that is, okay.
they're
thank
not
you.
tied directly to each other, but if you were to look at the free cash that's being
Okay,
applied, that
that's going to
kind
be
of
our capital.
offsets
Okay,
that,
thank
yeah.
you. Thank you. All right.
But again, any one thing, speaking of the special articles, the capital plan as well, in these predictions of the constrained budgets going up only 3% for the next 5 years, we've modeled what it would cost to borrow for the excess in the capital plan beyond what we have available in free cash and money available to us today. So there's, you know, we're going to have to look at a constrained capital plan as well, because the inflation, it's more so in terms of municipal vehicles, and than people are facing in their ordinary life, so.
Right, it's material cost and everything is doubled compared to what it used to be.
You know, to that point, though, that's true, but last year, if you go through the town meeting articles for Westboro, they got 2 police vehicles for the same cost that we got 1 police vehicle. So it makes you wonder if whether our department heads are actually taking a good look at trying to get the best value for the money and maybe not getting it exactly custom the way they want. I heard Scott talk all about his vehicles and how they had to be this kind of chassis and this kind of that. But it seems in other towns, they're able to get by with something the dealer just gives them. And so when we look at other towns and what they're spending on a comparable vehicle, and we're spending, I mean, we're talking about double, it makes you really scratch your head and wonder whether department heads are really doing their best to minimize costs and to, you know, to manage within their budgets. And so, anyway, just know that we're gonna be looking very closely at every line item this year. We will be looking at what other towns are doing, and we'll be questioning them on that. And we really didn't have time to do that last year. But, you know, but after the fall, it's a lot more serious now, and I think we really need, you know, I think we owe it to the town to do that. So I just think that the department heads should be ready for that, and hopefully they'll be proactive and they'll do their own slashing before they walk in here.
Well, to that point, I mean, I think the example you brought up was police vehicles, and I can't speak to that specifically. I don't know the circumstances around the Westboro's police vehicles, but I would assume that they're probably using the same collaborative procurements that the town uses. There's a few of them. I mean, obviously, we're subject to procurement laws where we're required to seek competitive quotes and so forth. I would caution comparing too many of the DPW vehicles in different people's capital plans, because a Ford pickup truck could be drastically different based on the specs used and what the use of the specialized use of it is. So they're not always comparable, but again, I don't know the circumstances around what Westboro was buying.
No, that's fair, and I just think it's more like, we're starting new, right? We're going to a new cycle. We're getting a better jump on it this year. And thankfully, we have a town administrator in place. But I just think that, you know, we have to find a place, right, where we can make things manageable, because otherwise, like, you know, Terry just said, what are you gonna do? We're gonna be stuck, right? So, okay.
No, we hear you, absolutely.
Good stuff. Any other questions on that financial update?
Only comment is that I didn't know that in finance and accounting, and also he does minutes. I didn't realize that that's, you know, so.
Using software.
You're a
And
person
I'm
of all,
here- I'm
of
here-
all hats.
So used to being both town accountant and
Yeah,
financial
so,
director that
you
you
know.
give out the accountant stuff, you had to pick up additional work. That's it. Okay, good stuff there. Thank you, Jason. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jason.
Actually, I appreciate this part of it. This table was very helpful. I know that's a moving, you know, things are in flux as those coming in, but having that kind of summarized to get a feel where things are going is very helpful, so appreciate that. We want to talk Aspet Valley?
Oh, yeah, the discussion last time was around, I think they were brought up as an example of one of the smaller departments that we might not want to invite for hearing, and we just hear from our, the K-8 and the regional district superintendent. But we did get an update on where their budget was for FY '26, and maybe we do want to invite them in.
Yeah, I think given
Back to
the significance of your change in students, which very, you know, is like the direct impact to our assessment, right, is the number of students. But what, in getting back with the superintendent, if he could also characterize outside of what the increased assessment is of the increased students, just if our students had held the same, what the budget growth would be, I think that would be a good comparison to kind of understand how much of that increase is just student enrollment versus how much of the increase is cost, the budget increases for like for
Right,
like.
and to the point of the FY '25 transfer request that you'll consider tonight,
Do you want,
the,
I'm still comfortable moving forward with
No,
that to
no,
handle
no,
the
I am as well.
477. Okay.
but I was hoping you would as well.
Yeah.
But this page that's in the memo was cut from their budget presentation last year, and that was we received the letter from them saying that they had voted an increased assessment. We inquired to them the reasons why they would increase their assessment. And then we did our due diligence to make sure that it was accurate, that the reasons why they, so.
Yeah, and according to the memo from the superintendent is that, they got their final state budget numbers.
Yeah.
And we're $477 off, right? So I think the motion on.
Can I ask one question
Yeah, go
first?
ahead.
So all of the communities that are assessed by Assabet, they all saw some form of increase based on that calculation that determines what our assessment is?
Well, no, some of them some of them had decreases because they had budgeted increases for them when they were beyond what the state had calculated for minimum contributions.
Oh, I see.
So-
Okay.
So I don't know if the overall assessment adjustment was a net of zero, where they just reallocated who was being assessed, but our assessment was lower than what the state's calculation for our minimum contribution was supposed to be, and that drove the 477
Got it.
increase.
Okay, thank you.
So I believe some of the towns did have decreases per
Right, that makes
per
sense.
calculation.
But it's all still done by that kind of magical algorithm we talked about last year, right? That it's done at the state level and it's, right,
Correct, the
okay.
Chapter 70
Perfect,
formula,
yeah. Thank you.
I know another thing we talked about with Assabet was their capital plan. And I don't know if there's an update on that in terms of how they were allocating projects against that capital plan.
Right, I mean,
So
if
if
there
that-
was, within their budget, there is a capital improvement fund, and so,
Yeah.
I mean,
So I think, given the interest last year, that might be something that,
Yeah.
as the superintendent presents to us, to just kind of have some thoughts against how that strategy is working, right? Because it was a new strategy for them, right, to set aside a capital improvement budget and then put projects against it. So that would be important to hear. Is that strategy working? That sort of thing. I'm trying to think of other topics that we've talked with the superintendent before. Okay. And then I'm seeing, so total growth of 48 students. So I guess in trying to distinguish the increase in our students versus the increase in all students, because I can imagine that, okay, if there's a total student population is raised, then
Right.
that's going to increase the budget. So it's almost, it's truly holding students equal. What might the budget increase look like? Did administrative costs rise from like a per student perspective? I think you get what
Right,
I'm saying.
absolutely. Yeah.
And that's all part of that calculation, right? Like, so we got about, what, I guess 8 additional students, and right? And I think that's a great sign. I mean, I think it's great that our kids are getting in, because it's not easy to get in to Assabet. Get a lot of applications, so that would just be one of those factors in that calculation, because they also take other factors that are not even related to the school, right? They're more income driven and, right? And,
correct, yeah. There's-
right, so, okay.
The minimum contributions include wealth factors, so.
Right, right.
And just because I thought of it, and has nothing to do with Assabet, but in the realm of school, could you help me remember to Superintendent Martineau, the costs for the students that go to the agricultural school? And I know that is a significant cost.
Yeah, just so people here know, we carry that in the town side of the budget, because
Oh, okay.
I don't know why the history is what it is, but we do include that within the town budget is the Norfolk agricultural student. And the cost for one student, the tuition's approximately $27,000 to attend the school. But in addition to that, we have to pay for the transportation. So there's a van service that we contract with through the school department, and that's about the same amount as the tuition.
Yeah, and I guess
It's somewhere in the neighborhood of $55,000.
I track that because it's not necessarily an expense we plan for. We don't know how many students are going to take advantage of that opportunity. So it seems like it's kind of a surprise at times.
Well, we get notified. We get notified in time
Okay.
to set it in the budget.
Okay, good.
The superintendent.
So the timing is good.
Superintendent of schools will get a notice that a student has applied there.
Okay.
And they could ultimately change their mind and not go, but.
But we budget for the potential application, the potential
If
enrollment.
there's an applicant, then we would.
Okay.
If there is, and again, this is going out on a tangent, but if there are multiple students attending there, I assume that we'd be paying double for the tuition, but we'd probably, there'd be some
Take
economies of
advantage of
scale with the van. And I think the van probably is being coordinated to go through neighboring towns that have students that go there too. The school's in Walpole, Mass.
Carpooling arrangements from a transportation perspective. Okay.
So we do not have the updated tuition yet for that, but it'll be in the neighborhood of $55,000. And I believe the one student that is there will continue going there for the next year.
Okay. And so the timing that we will know what the application numbers are,
Well,
you know?
we'll
recall?
check in with the schools, see if they've received any notice. I think it's, I don't know a deadline, but I think it's the end of February when they
Oh, okay.
tell us.
Okay, so
So it's
it will
before
become-
he presents his budget to us?
And it's even
Well-
going to be part of
well, it
the
would be
town budget.
Before we're done with the town budget, because we include those costs in the town budget.
Okay.
We'll have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry for that tangent. It just,
No,
as
that's
we were
all- that's all
talking
right.
about regional Assabet enrollment, it just made me think of the agricultural with Norfolk as well.
Forgive me if I missed it. What's the source of the transfer? Where are we transferring the funds from?
From the Appropriations Reserve Fund.
That's what I thought. Okay. Good.
Yeah, so don't have a draft motion per se, but it would be along the lines of approving the transfer of $477 from the Appropriations Committee Reserve Fund to, help me, Jason,
To the Aspet Valley appropriation.
appropriation or assessment.
Yeah.
So it's- yeah,
I thought we weren't responsible for transportation part. So-
We were talking about two different things, so I don't want people to get confused, but the school budgets include transportation within them.
Right.
We were talking about the Norfolk County
That's what I'm
agricultural
talking about,
students,
yeah.
so we are responsible for transporting the
For some reason in my
Norfolk
head, I thought
student.
we weren't responsible for transporting to another.
No, we are. In that instance, we are responsible for it.
It was part of the school choice.
It's because I don't know the citation off the top of my head, but it's a state law that says if our vocational school, local school district doesn't offer a program under a certain list of programs, that they're entitled to seek it elsewhere. And this vocational school, Norfolk Agricultural, offers the agricultural program that Assabet does not. So they're
I
entitled.
understand that part. I thought the transportation was up to the parents to supply, but,
No.
okay. No.
We had to
No.
pay in my former town as
No,
well,
I
unfortunately.
believe with school choice, as a distinction to that, if somebody from town here wanted to attend another school under the school choice program, and the district accepted them, it would be the parent's responsibility to transport them.
Okay,
But
yeah.
under the agricultural program, there's a distinction there.
Okay,
It's
that's
a
where
separate set of law.
That's where, okay.
That's
Thanks.
great.
I say we add on a farm to our,
Yeah.
it'll save us money.
We can ask the
Some
vocational
classrooms at one of our town farms.
Right.
We've got 3 or so to choose from.
So I'll go ahead and move then.
Yeah, and let me just say that even more specifically, so it'd be a motion to transfer $477 from the Appropriations Committee Reserve Fund to the Aspet Valley Assessment for fiscal year 2025.
Okay, so what, yes,
So,
so moved and
Jeff
seconded.
and George. Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Hey,
5-0. Thank you very much. Next meeting and schedule looking forward. Any other departments have lined up, Jason, that we?
Not yet, and I wanted to unfortunately talk about that in real time here. Next week, we kind of agreed to an alternating Tuesday schedule. Next week, financial planning is going to have a Tuesday meeting. The week after that is school vacation, which a lot of us will be on vacation that week, so it won't be available. I was going to propose if we can bring one of the bigger departments in, but would the Thursday, the 13th work for everybody here?
Works for me.
I'm good.
13th of February?
Of February, right?
I'm away.
I'm
so,
okay.
But
And George, would you want us to hold off then, or you want to
if
keep
everyone else can
moving?
make it, I don't want to,
Okay.
we've got a lot to cover, and
Yeah, and then we,
I'm away for the week, and if we lose a week, it's going to be
Yeah.
tight.
sounds good. So Thursday, the 13th. Department to be determined. Who's in front of financial planning next Tuesday? Do you recall?
I don't remember. I think it might be Public Works.
Okay.
Oh, no, it's the planning department.
planning,
And
okay.
for the CPA articles and the planning.
Yeah, planning and CPA. Yeah, or CPC. Yep, okay. I remember that from the agenda. So, once again, if it makes sense,
I'll see,
Feels
yeah,
of
I'll
that.
see if Lori has the bandwidth to
do.
come before your folks, and maybe John Campbell will be available for the
That'd be
CPA
awesome.
articles. Otherwise, we could try to get the schools rescheduled for that night, potentially. Yeah, they had a conflict and couldn't come tonight, so that's the initial schedule we talked about, and, I'm very grateful that Isabella was
yeah,
available.
that was great to be able to bring on forward.
But yeah, we ordinarily would have had the schools this week, but they had a conflict and couldn't attend.
Sounds good. So we'll
But
continue to be flexible.
Try to have the schools and then seek maybe the planner if. Planning
sounds
director,
good.
I should say.
Okay, 2:13, and 6 PM time still working for everybody? That work okay, Jeff?
That works.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So 6 PM, 2:13. Anything else, Stephanie, Jason?
No. I think
That's enough?
yeah, we're on the move.
Move to adjourn.
second.
All right, that's Jeff and Terry at about 7:08. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you both.
You, nice to meet you.